Welcome. Here we are. Developing Dads, episode 27, where we're going to go talking about switching off and keeping fit as a dad. Tips to unwind. This was Neil's very lengthy title that we might have to adjust in post just to make sure it kind of fits a character length overall. But yes, welcome to another episode of the Developing Dads podcast, where we talk about all things dad life. We talk about raising young families and young kids and doing all the things that dads fundamentally do. Today, I am in Wales at the moment, in fact, on a team retreat. And if you're on YouTube, you can see my nice, blurry, fancy background where I'm just using the team kit, basically, to record my own podcast because, I can, which is part of the benefit of working for a tech media company, I guess. But as we start off, every week, we start off with a little kind of how are you thing. We check in with each other, see how we're feeling, what we're up to, what we've been doing. Because that's the thing that, blokes don't do enough. And certainly me and Neil didn't do enough for a long time. So I guess that's how we'll kick it off, Neil, shall we? How are you? How was your week?
Sounds good. It's only Tuesday, so my week is still just beginning. But it's been off to a good start, I think. Unfortunately, I've got a little bit of a niggle in terms of an injury, which I don't know if I want to call it an injury yet. But my calf muscle seems to be acting up a little bit in terms of running. So that's not great. I think I'll probably take the next 5 days off and see how it goes. Do some ice plunges, see if that has any impact. But yeah, the week started off well, and I've actually started doing something slightly different, which I didn't mention on the other podcast. But I've started journaling, which I've kind of dabbled with on and off in the multiple years I've been alive. But I've kind of
the multiple years I've been alive,
the many years, and I'm just trying to find it actually. So it's I bought this. When did I buy this? I think I probably bought it either the boys were just born or just after they were born, and it's called the Mind Journal. And the story behind it is it's an English chap who created it, and basically his best friend committed suicide, and he said he thought there must be a better way to deal with this. So it's a bit of a journal that guides you through journaling. So every page is like, name 3 things you're grateful for, name 3 things you want to focus on, name your happy hour for the day, and then it kind of guides you in terms of some questions it asks. So it might go into really deep questions like, what do you think about death? Or it might be unguided, so there'll be 3 pages of just writing what you want. So I've kind of got back into that over the last kind of 5 days, which is nice. And I think I probably delved into that a bit more. I was feeling a bit overwhelmed. I was feeling a bit like, am I okay? And I mentioned this in another podcast. Am I okay kind of taking a step back from chasing my career for promotion, for more money, and just gliding with the times? So yeah, did a bit of discovery through journaling, which has been nice.
What did you discover?
What did I discover? I guess I'm now content, and I've now digested a bit more about what we spoke about in terms of just in my kind of early to mid 30s, just let myself coast a little bit, enjoy my family time. The kids will be grown up. I mean, Isla will be 17 when I turn 40, which is mad. So she'll have her own life, and maybe in my 40s I can or maybe late 30s, I can focus down on my career and just kind of look for that promotion and look for that next level. But I think
is that kind of
content?
I think, I don't know if it was the last podcast, the podcast previously, but you sort of asked, what do I actually enjoy about the podcast in itself? And, do you think that me asking you those questions or us having that conversation kind of sparks you into some sort of conversation with yourself and a discussion in terms of what you perhaps want or don't want, or where do you see yourself in, in the cliche idea of like 5 to 10 years? Did it spark something in you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I never really thought about just being content and just being happy, and the realization that obviously my kids are going to be, they're not young forever. And when they get into their teens, they're probably going to be wanting to go out every night and see their friends and not necessarily need me around as much. So that realization was quite I don't know why I didn't think of it before, but yeah, definitely it helps discussing it and having it.
There's something funny. There's something funny about that where, I think you've talked about the hustle culture idea of, work, and, you got to go after things and do things and whatever else. And I think someone was talking about this. I wouldn't necessarily mention names, but someone was talking about this idea of having like a mantra, and then the mantra is effectively not everything blossoms all year round. So there are essentially seasons within your year. There's seasons within your life to a certain extent, and there's a sense of self-acceptance that in your 20s, or certainly looking back on my 20s and your 20s, you had loads of time. You had loads of stuff. You were like totally unencumbered. You know, you didn't have debt. You didn't have all those kind of things. You just fundamentally could hustle culture, right? You didn't have to have very specific priorities, or you certainly didn't have any specific demands on your time. But now you're a family man, you've got kids to look after, you have very set priorities and specific priorities. And you have to make a choice. You can't do everything. You can't be one man to everything. You can't be a career-driven, focused man at the same time as, you know, spending as much time with your kids as you possibly can. I don't know how anyone potentially does that. So yeah, I think it's good to have that little kind of thought where you're like, well, actually, what is the thing that makes me happy? And you know what? If one thing just does fine, it's just simmering. You know, I'm performing well. I'm doing what I'm required to do at work. I enjoy what I'm doing, but it's not something that I'm like, hey, I need to push hard. But then with the seasons aspect of things, exactly like we talked about, and I don't know if it was the last podcast, maybe it was. It's the whole thing of you being able to be like, hey, when I'm 40, I can crack on again. Like I can go for that CEO position because I've got the time.
Yeah, no, you're dead right. And I think writing it down kind of, I don't know, solidifies it and makes it real. Like you think about it, you can process it more in your head, but I think until you write it down, I think that's where it kind of helps. And I'm just looking back. So this is the kind of the journal in itself. It's really good. So it starts off, how do you feel? Then you do your intentions or achievements. So it's designed to either be at the start or at the end of the day. What am I grateful for? Your happy hour. And here's one of the questions it asks. So it's called, well, the question is, what's missing from your life? It could be a sense of purpose, passion, meaning, fun, or even adventure. What could you do to find more of it in your life? What's holding you back? Then you kind of got 3 pages of just like whatever that question spurs on, and you document and write. So yeah, I'd recommend it if anyone's looking out for a journal that they're never done journaling before. Check out Mind Journal.
Do you tend to set like a date and time of when you do it?
Normally, when I sit down at my desk, either if that's at work, well, I sit down at a desk every morning, so it's kind of the easy routine. Just before I open my laptop, I'll get the journal out, and that could be in the office because I also sit down in the office. But yeah, and like there might be periods of time, like a week or two, where I don't do it, but there are other times where I do it pretty religiously. Yeah.
So is that the only thing you've done this week so far? Monday and Tuesday, you've just journaled. That's your start.
Yeah, and just obviously standard work stuff. Planning another London trip, which is a bit short notice, but I'll be in London next week, which would be quite nice again.
It'll be fun. We'll get an in-person pod done, I'm sure.
Yeah, and then in July, actually, I'm down for a week, mid-July as well. So
pump out a couple more.
Yeah. Anyway, how's your couple of days been in lovely Wales?
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah, it's a bit different. I don't think I've been on a team retreat. Well, I certainly haven't because I haven't been employed. So it's kind of, we've been sort of tasked with working on our own sort of side projects. So I sorted out my landlord insurance today, which I guess is a side hustle. That's thankfully one thing that has actually come down in price. So I don't have any costs to moan about in that perspective. But you know, it's one of those things that I think it's a boring task to do, but you should phone up your insurer and just be like, hey, is this the best deal I can get? And you have to go through all the questions and all the rigmarole and whatever else. But usually you're saving yourself like a few £100. So I did that. I looked at my energy supplier. That was another thing I did today. I also, I don't have any debt. You know, I always pay off the credit card, and the only debt that I do have debt. The only debt I do have is like asset debt. So it's mortgages aspect of things. And I have 2 mortgages, and I'd like some element of liquidity or some cash in my bank after this whole build is done. So it would be a good idea for me to make sure there's something, you know, there's a cushion at least in the bank account, and I'm not completely just ridding myself of everything I possibly have. So we thankfully got approved from Barclays for a loan, a 0% loan thing for our kitchen. So that just means I've got the money to pay it off now if I want to, but at the same time, I'd rather borrow that money to then it not cost me anything, but ultimately gives me that cushion at the end of the day. And I'm not kind of thinking, oh shit, I've got no money in the bank. I need to save a bit harder or whatever else. So that was good. And it's one of those squeaky bum times where you're like, is there any closets? Is there anything in my closet that I haven't figured out that someone's like
and all that.
cloned me or whatnot. So yeah, I now also worked out that I'm in well over £500,000 worth of debt, which is like well over that figure, and that's pretty terrifying, if I'm honest.
Yeah, if you could compare it to me, I mean, I know you've got obviously 2 properties and stuff, and that's different, but probably 150.
Yeah, but then I guess it's kind of like you talking about the idea of where your trajectory of life is ultimately. And, I can afford both mortgages if Laura doesn't work. If there's no one renting the house. I can still afford all those things. I can afford our expenses. So, and I also think that it's probably a good time to take risks like that, or at least have a higher degree of risk when I'm this age, even if I do have a child and even if I do have a wife and whatnot to do.
Yeah, I mean, Olivia's only come up to 1, so she's pretty cheap.
Yeah, she'll be fine. Yeah, she is fine for now. But it's also the fact that ultimately my income probably trajectory is still going to go up. So it means that I'll be slowly but surely paying off that debt overall. It's that book that we've talked about previously, the die with zero aspect of things. So I'll rather take a bit of a risk now, leverage it with good debt. So it means that I've got property debt rather than it being sort of bad debt in the sense of credit cards that I've been buying clothes or things that aren't really that valuable or unlikely to go up.
Yeah.
So for me, taking a 0% loan out with Barclays and one in which I can afford to pay off right now, it's a very low risk. And actually it probably makes sense that I take on something that's basically free, right? I could just crack on and not have to worry too much about money for the next few months. And if I want to pay it off now, I can do that. So I guess, yeah, that's kind of been this week. There's been a bit of financial planning and just thinking about it. We should have the roof on the extension put in tomorrow, and then the Velux windows and all that kind of stuff are going to be sorted out. So that will be fantastic. The bifold doors are all in. I think I talked about that before. And then the rest of the week, there's a company that I invested in. I invest my time for a share of it, which is it's called the PT Project. I don't know if I told you about this, Neil, did I?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you did. Yeah.
So we basically, it's with a couple of the guys. They run the sort of mentorship stuff, and I do video and photos, and basically just help consult and discuss the whole thing. And we sold out the first mentoring day, which is fantastic.
Wow,
I say we.
Nice.
It was Paul and James that managed to do it. So that's fantastic, and I have a share of that business. And so I've got to do a bit of that on Saturday morning. I've got to go up to Birmingham for the afternoon, or the morning sort of afternoon. I filmed a wedding actually on the Saturday. So I think we were talking about that. I was going to go and film a wedding or something like that.
How much sweat did you produce?
Oh, it was a lot of sweat, Neil. It was a very, very hard day. It was not the easiest thing I've ever done, and I was shattered at the end of it. But that was pretty much the weekend. And then Sunday we drove here. So yeah.
How long are you in Wales for?
Until Thursday morning.
Nice.
So 4 days, and we leave Thursday morning. So we've got another day tomorrow, and that's it. Yeah.
Sweet.
Pretty fun. That's kind of it, really. That's my week. I mean, it's only Tuesday, so I don't really have much to report on apart from the fact that I've gotten myself into more debt and I'm in the middle of nowhere.
You met any funny speaking Welsh people? You shouldn't probably say that.
Nah, you can't really say funny speaking Welsh people. But I've met some Welsh people, yes. There's some Welsh people in our team.
People say Scottish people sound funny. So
they do. It's kind of I've always found that quite interesting. Is I think Ali wore a kilt to a wedding, and a lot of the comments on his Instagram page were like, "Why is Ali in a skirt?" I'm like,
settle down.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, in today's podcast, episode number 27 of the Developing Dads podcast, we're going to talk about switching off and keeping fit as a dad. Some tips to unwind. What did this come from? What did spark this potential discussion, Neil?
I guess there's been a couple of friends and colleagues, like, how do I manage it? So my perspective, if this is your first ever podcast you've ever listened to, I've got 3 kids, 7-year-old and almost 2 4-year-olds, twins. I run about 20, 30 miles a week and do pretty well in my job. Manage to maintain that, work some evenings when it's needed, travel for work to London when it's needed. And I still manage to kind of fit all that in with kind of, I don't know, self-care, mental health, spend time with my wife, date nights, and all that stuff. So, I just thought I'd kind of, I don't know, I wanted to speak about that on the podcast, maybe some tips, and hopefully other dads can relate to it.
Okay. I think exactly what you're saying is a lot of people will come to you potentially with that question of, how do you fit all of this in? How do you manage to do the dad thing, do the fitness thing, do the work thing, like do all these things that fundamentally are required of you? The first thing that I would say to anyone who's considering that is to do some sort of like realistic or honest time audit and track yourself for an entire week. Like, what time do you wake up? What's the first thing that you do? Like, just track everything that you do. I can't remember the thing. I think it's called Toggle. Maybe it's called Toggle. But you basically can just like set timers for stuff that you're doing through the week. I'm pretty sure it's Toggle. I've got my laptop in front of me. I can have a look. Toggle time tracker. Again, another professional podcast, isn't it? Yeah, Toggle. Toggl. It's basically sort of tracking software. You can get it on your phone. You can set a timer, and then see what you do over an entire week. And I think that will fundamentally tell you where you're wasting your time. Because
it's a pretty solid start.
Like, I don't care how productive people think they are, or I don't have enough time. I don't have that kind of thing. Like, that's not an excuse, really. Even if you've got kids, even if you've got a wife, even I can say I'm busy. But let's be honest, I could probably find some time to do something. Right. Something that I said I would want to do or should do. And usually one of those things is like that keeping fit thing or switching off thing or, self-care aspects of stuff. So yeah, you should try it. Maybe we should try it, Neil. Maybe we should try it for the next podcast or something. We do like I tracked my time for a week and this is what I found out kind of thing. That'd be quite fun. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I like that suggestion. Yeah, let's do that.
All right, cool. So yeah, first thing, any dad, if you're thinking about, how do I fit this fitness thing in? How do I fit in this switching off thing? Time track. Like, check out what you're doing, toggle it, see what's going on, and then you could probably start to work out, where can I fit in a decent podcast? Or where can I fit in like a podcast to listen to? Where can I fit in a bit of time to read? When can I fit in to go to a run? When can I fit in to go to the gym? I think that would be my definitely my first big suggestion.
Yeah, no, it's a solid one. And I've probably managed to do what I do through just years of trial and error, failing, what works, what doesn't work. And the example is I think we're 6 months into the year, almost 6 months into the year. And we are June. No, 5 months. Get my numbers mixed up. But yeah, almost 6 months into and I've not missed a week of running. That's probably the longest I've gone in terms of running. So I feel like I've nailed that routine and how I get away with it and how it doesn't impact my family life, how it doesn't impact time with Rebecca, is I get up at 5 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, and I go for my run. Sometimes on a Saturday or Sunday, I might choose to do a long run, which helps with the mileage, but generally my running time is between 5 and 6 in the morning. And that really helps, A, get out of the way, and B, it doesn't impact anybody's family life. So I can sneak out the house, I can do my thing. But also, you've got to be obviously mindful that you need your sleep. So that means I need to go to bed at least 9, 9:30 every night. And I still make time. So the kids go to bed between 7, 7:30, exception tonight, it was 8. But that still gives Rebecca and I an hour and a half to spend time together. And that's not going to be every night. Rebecca's got her thing she wants to do at night. I've got my things like this podcast I want to do. So as long as I can come back to my next point is just make a plan and communicate. So if you've got a plan for the week of when you want to go for a run, when you want to see your friends, you need to have some plan for when you want to see your spouse, have some plan of when you want to have some kid time. Just plan out your week. So when you've done that toggle digest of what you've done in the week, then make a plan and see how it works.
I do really like the early morning thing. And I know it's kind of hard to get up and but whatever else. But you can prep your bag the night before. You can commit to it. You can set your alarm. You can get organized, like all that kind of stuff.
And
but
you get used to it.
Yeah, it is. But you're also not running into a problem, really, are you? You're when people put anything off to a later in the day, I'm convinced it's less likely to get done.
It's for sure.
So if you do it first thing, and if you set that as a priority, like we spoke about it in previous podcasts, like what are the 3 things that you're prioritizing? Is one of them health? Is one of them family? Is one of them relationships, for example? And if one of them's health, then like that should be a priority in your day. You should be serving that. And the early morning exercise, it's not necessarily the most optimized. It's a bit more challenging or whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's still taking that big priority. And I think that serves into like probably one of the things that I'm interested in talking about is that if you want to keep fit or you want that switching off aspect, like I think you should prioritize yourself first. And that seems really selfish, but when you are on a plane, they tell you to put your life jacket on first and then help others. Because if you don't have your life jacket on, you could you'll drown.
Yeah.
And then what use are you to people?
Exactly.
It is. So
same with keeping fit.
Yeah, but it is. And to me, that means that you should then ultimately prioritize yourself first for those priorities that they're important to you, that ultimately help serve others. Like, maintaining your health, because ultimately that means you're not going to be in hospital, you're useful to people, you're useful to the people that are around you. And then probably wealth is not an unreasonable expectation, because that helps ultimately everyone else do what they need to do and how they manage to live and whatnot. So yeah, that's a big one, is that realization of that it is selfish, but it's selfish with the greater cause. Because you ultimately, if you prioritize your health in the morning, or you prioritize your health overall and keeping fit, you're not exercising for hours and hours a day. It can be half an hour. That's all it has to be. So I guess that's a big part of one of the things that I'd like to suggest, is that you should be selfish, but selfish because it's ultimately helping the greater cause of being a happy, healthy dad.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty solid advice. And one thing I'd like to make a point in saying is that obviously I don't know I wouldn't say or how to get this across, but I've been a dad for the last 7 years. I've kind of managed to get into routine, managed to fit around the things that need to be done as a dad. If you're a new dad and you're just getting into this whole dad life, then it's okay not to exercise. It's okay to feel a bit shit and get fat and eat too much and drink too much. I probably took a year out, maybe even 18 months out of just doing nothing, and like no exercise, no running, no watching what I eat, and just lived a little bit, survived with lack of sleep, supported my wife as best I could. And I think if you're a new dad, then that should be your priority. I think, leaving your health to one side a bit is probably a good thing, because there's more important things, like your newborn, like your wife that's just had a baby, and that kind of thing.
But then perhaps I disagree slightly on some of those things, because it's not just about keeping fit in the sense of heart and lungs and muscles. There's still a part there, even no matter how difficult time is. You must have taken time to yourself at some point to switch off and to relax. And
it's a good point. There's definitely, train journeys into work, podcasts I'd listened to, time at the desk where maybe I had no work to do and I was doing some journaling or something like that. So yeah, I guess that is switching off, and that is looking after myself, and it's not necessarily, but it's definitely, I did less of it, I guess, in the first year of having my first baby.
Because it's not, I guess what I'm not trying to say here is, and I'm sure you're not saying it either, is that exercise isn't just like you say, doing bicep curls in front of the mirror or run up a hill to escape your family. It's things like switching off, where you go upstairs and you sit in your bedroom and you'll scroll on Instagram or look at a YouTube video. That's switching off a little bit. That's turning your mind off, going elsewhere, going into a dreamland somewhere, reading a book, listening to a podcast. That kind of thing that's invaluable, I find, from a just keeping fit and keeping healthy and overall. Yeah, because one of my big ones this year was because I'd entered into the world of employed work, I now had time to commute. And I've found that commuting time, because I've got these AirPod Max things or whatever they're called, they've got noise cancelling. I can listen to a podcast because I've really got into podcasts for obvious reasons why I've started this, but podcasts are just an amazing thing that people share ideas and thoughts on stuff. And I found that commute a really good way to unwind and to relax. If I get a seat, obviously. I mean, if anyone's seen some of the tube rides and trains and whatnot, it can be quite difficult. But fundamentally, I find it really good, and I find that I can, even potentially start ironing out, my thoughts on, I don't know, projects that I want to either start or dream to-do lists, or do you know what I mean? Like I really think that sort of switching off stuff can be anything around reading and listening to podcasts or just journaling, like you say. And I think that's part of like the health audit, the keeping fit thing.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And just on that, using your phone and listen to podcasts and stuff. One thing that I also started doing is if I didn't have my notepad with me, or if I was maybe tempted to scroll on social media or look at my phone just before bed, I'd open up the notes app and just start a journal and just start writing my thoughts. And that kind of gets rid of that barrier of like, okay, I don't need a desk. I don't need a pen and a paper. I've always got my phone on me. It's always in my pocket. So instead of scrolling Instagram and maybe getting jealous of other people, then why can't I use that time to note down my thoughts and where my head's at and just see where it goes. It's a bit different. I definitely prefer writing in terms of the true form of pen and paper, but it just does the same thing.
Yeah, I do. I pick up on that. I totally agree that there's something about like a physical checklist.
Yeah, for sure.
I use one at work. I use a little field notes book, and I draw a little square in what I need to do, and then I like to tick it off overall. But then I started using an app called Todoist. If you don't know if you've ever heard of that app before, it goes across all platforms. It's really good. Laura has it for a shopping list. She's got it on her phone, and we can like schedule things together. So yeah, it's a bit of a mix. Like sometimes it's quite good to have a digital one, but yeah, note taking, like that note taking aspect is just really, really good.
One thing I found that was really helpful, just trying to unwind, switch off, and also do a bit of exercise, whether it's a walk or a run or a cycle, is find a buddy to do it with. So I'm relatively new to this area, so I've been living here for 3 years now. And through Rebecca's kind of mum friends or kind of other friends, I've kind of found two dads that I either go out running with or go for a walk or even go for a pint with, and try to find somebody that's A, going through the journey of kids, and B, enjoys keeping fit, and try and kind of spur each other on and keep each other motivated can help. There's a bit of accountability there. There's a bit of you don't want to let him down if you make a plan, and he doesn't want to let you down, and that kind of thing. So that's a big thing. And as I said, I'm new to the area. I still managed to find two dads that I enjoy their time.
There is something about that accountability, though, isn't there? That ultimately keeps you going, keeps you doing the thing. Because if you've got someone who is, I also think that finding someone who's roughly on your same level, if you will, they're not too far away, but maybe even they're not too far ahead of you, that keeps you super accountable, because you don't want to let that person down. Because if you fall off the wagon of potentially like training or whatnot, you don't want to then them to suffer or have to like hold back because of you. You don't want to be that person. But then equally, I wouldn't say that my father-in-law David's fitter than me, and I probably am quite a bit fitter than him, but because I'm 25 years younger than he is, or 20 odd years younger than he is, but it's doing the same thing together. So we'll both go and do that 5k run, and he keeps me accountable because he wants to do it. I keep him accountable because I want to do it.
Yeah.
And that works really, really well. I think it's really good. But then on the flip side, I quite like going to the gym on my own.
Yeah, I definitely say 95 or 99% of my exercise is on my own, and I enjoy that time.
Because it's like a meditative switch off. Like I don't have to entertain anyone. I don't have to tell anyone anything. I have to teach them. Because again, unfortunately, I will sound arrogant, but I'm at a point where when I go to the gym with the most people, they come with me because I'm much better than them.
PT life,
and I can teach them, and I'm not interested to do that anymore. Like I want to just I just want to train and enjoy myself and have that switch off time. Because there's something blissful about putting your earphones in and just disappearing.
Yeah, I can't remember who said it. It was a podcast I listened to. Could be Mo Gaudat. That your body craves a rhythm and craves being in kind of a rhythmic motion. There's some kind of scientific evidence based on that, and that's why when you run, and again, I'm probably cognizant that you've got to get to a certain level of running. So I can comfortably, and this is not me being big headed, it's just I've done it a long time. I can comfortably go for a 10K and feel really relaxed after it. I know others will try and get to that 10K and feel absolutely busted from it. But when you get to that level and you just kind of get in that motion of that rhythm of putting one foot in front of the other and moving your arms and that, you do just kind of go into a flow state, and your mind and your thoughts, you might not have a podcast on, or you might have a podcast on, but you just kind of zone out of completely everything. And by that time it's 10K and it's done. So
yeah, it's quite nice. There's a nice meditative motion aspect of things to that, which is therapy, I guess. And it's the unwinding in the weird sense of it's stressful, but at the same time it feels really kind of meditative and just nice, I guess.
Yeah. How do you and Laura deal with getting time together? Olivia's now a year old. Have you got any tactics, tips?
Yeah, we don't do it so well. So I'm probably, saying do as I say, not as I do, I guess. And I've tried to think of things to do it, but for us to unwind overall, it's kind of prioritizing yourself again in that sense. So, scheduling it in, like putting it in a diary and saying, between this time and this time, I'm off. Like I'm off the clock. I'm going to go and do my own thing. Doesn't matter what you do. It's like you talked about your bank account thing, where £100 goes into your bank account, £100 goes into Rebecca's bank account, and how you spend that time, nothing. How you spend that money, nothing to do with each other. You do what you want.
Yeah.
Maybe if you use it down the strippers, it's probably not. You probably have something to say about it. Or if Rebecca goes down the strippers, you probably have something to say about it.
Agree, but yeah, there's no questions.
Yeah, but it's like, you get that hour and you take that hour and that's it. And I think that's just setting like those expectations overall. For us to both unwind together, we do like to go for a walk. So we'll take Olivia when she's wanting a nap time, and we'll go down to like Nero, for example, and we can sit in there and we'll talk and chat about things. But I tend to find the best way for us to have a conversation about stuff and to unwind is actually to go and do activity, rather than just sort of sat on a sofa just watching TV, because we'll just sit on our phones and we'll just kind of like not really talk to each other. Whereas when we're out doing something, and I find this with our friends as well, especially when we're in lockdown, I made it sure that we did 1 to 2 walks a day. And when we went out to walks, like, I don't know, I felt incredibly close to Laura at that time, because we had had the time to go and do it. We were well rested. We didn't have a kid, which is probably very helpful. But I felt super close to her because we just went out and we talked when we walked. And especially when it was like spring mornings or summer evenings or whatever else, that was probably one of the best ways that I found for both of us to unwind and keep fit and active and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, what do you do? Like, what are your long-term relationship tactics?
Long time now. I've been with Rebecca. Met her in mind blank. Been married 7 years, 11 years I think we've been together, which is mad. But I think a lot of trial and error, and there's been definitely a lot of ups and downs. And with every relationship, there's always going to be ups and downs. I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, we've nailed it. But I guess in the last 18, 24 months, we've got into quite a good rhythm of having date nights. And there might be a week or two where we miss it and not manage it, but pretty good in terms of getting the kids down to bed at 7:30, cooking a nice meal together, whether it's a steak or something like that. And also we ask my parents, our parents, me and Gordon, if they can look after the kids. Or, for example, my in-laws took the kids for 4 days this weekend. And yeah, just asking them and not being afraid to ask for help and ask for time, I think it is a good thing. And it might be slightly harder if you don't have parents near you or your parents are a bit older. But I don't know, try and pay for a babysitter, try and get a friend roped in to just look after them for a few hours. I think can make a world of difference, because I think in the start of when Isla was born, and maybe even when the twins were born, we started neglecting it, and like cracks start appearing and your relationship might go a bit sideways. But I guess try and get it back on track. Try and make that time.
I think there's a side note on that though, to a certain extent. If you consider the initial stages of having a child is new to everyone. So your focus and your attention, your everything essentially goes towards the child, and you're trying to understand, where you sit in that world as well. Like you're trying to work out your individual responsibilities now, and then as the dust perhaps starts to settle, you're then able to sort of realign and come back into whatever it was that helped create the babies.
Yeah, no, I think you're dead right, and I think that takes time. So being aware of that, and it's okay to have a rocky 6-12 months, as long as it's not too rocky, and you still love each other. But yeah, accept that things will be different, and you may not be as close, and there is another human being that is in between you for that period of time. And yeah, hopefully it'll get easier. So yeah, my advice is just to ask for help when you need it, schedule in that time. And again, like I'm really bad at saying who said this thing or who mentioned it on a podcast, but there's somebody I was listening to was all about the art of playing and like being playful. And it could be, I don't know, just kicking a ball together or getting a bat and ball and bouncing it back and forward, or even some sort of like playing even is like walking. And as you mentioned, like having something different instead of just focusing on the TV, because we're bad for watching TV series and it's not really spending time together. It's not really talking. It's just sitting on your phone.
It's like a first date and you go to the cinema.
yeah. And then you go to bed. So that's not really spending time together. You might enjoy it, but
no. But it is for me. I think we're in a different part of our relationship, or certainly our journey with children at the moment, and an element of dust is still in the air, especially with this goddamn house extension thing that we're going through. For everything that we love living with our in-laws, and they are incredibly helpful. It's not necessarily our house; it's their house.
Yeah.
It's their time, and it's nice when it's just once the house is done, it's just going to be me and Laura. I think there is a part of me that says, once that's kind of sorted, we're sorted to a certain extent, and we can start planning these sort of date nights and cooking, and Olivia can go up the road, and we can just have the house to ourselves, and we can go out and do things and whatnot. And I guess sometimes it actually made it more special that we would have time together on our own when Olivia's been looked after, or we take her with her and she just sleeps in the basket or whatever it was. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's just a case of initially when you start having your first child, or your first child comes along, it is really just a case of managing everything. And like I said, kind of repeating myself, but you're both trying to work out your individual responsibilities when it comes to motherhood and fatherhood and parenthood, and where you fit and how you fit in, and working it all out. And it's really difficult. And eventually the dust does settle, and I think you just come back into it, and you come back as a teamwork, and then you have another one, and it screws it over again. So highly recommend having a kid. It's great for your relationship.
But like, I don't know, a few minutes ago, you mentioned a key word of journey. And I think that is a key thing, that you are on a journey. It will get easier. It will change. That journey will have its ups and downs. And similarly to a career that we started off the podcast with, you will go through seasons. And yeah, just know that it will be okay.
Yeah. It was also one of those things where you consider the idea that if you're in a relationship now and you're considering you're married, or you're considering having children, those are not dads necessarily listening to this, but you want to be a dad. Work the shit out now.
Yeah.
Like if you've got some things in your relationship that you're responsible for and you're not doing, or they're responsible and they're not doing, like try and iron that out a little bit, or acknowledge it, or sort it out, or do something, because a baby, children, that takes a pickaxe to a crack, and it makes it wide. And if you don't have some well seated foundations and some true understanding of love and respect between each other, it can make it very challenging.
Yeah, that's quite solid and deep advice. We need to get back on track a little bit.
Yeah, let's take away from this deep talking stuff. Like we're unprofessional podcasters who have no idea what we're doing in the life of dad and life. But one of the massive ones, and this is just maybe a personal preference, but fundamentally, like the one of the number one things that I love with the fact that, and I think it should be done, naps. Taking a nap.
Yeah.
Oh, that must be a greenhorn thing, because Dad loves a nap. You love a nap. You know, I've come down many a time before I had a child, and Neil, in between things, you just shut his eyes, put his hands in his chest, and Neil would just be having a quiet, like, meditative nap. And I don't know, Isla's running around in her nappy, just screaming her head off. The boys are throwing balls at each other, and Neil's just there, eyes closed, because he knows he's got no responsibility. He doesn't need to do anything. He's just having a nap.
Yeah.
And I think nap when baby naps, capture little sleepy bits in between. You might feel a bit groggy after it. One of the tips there is your peak caffeine concentration levels get in your bloodstream at about 45 minutes. So drink a coffee. By the time you get your eyes shut, 20 minutes, half an hour, caffeine's at its peak levels. So when you wake up, you don't feel all groggy and whatnot, and you're ready to go again. So that's a good little scientific tip, I guess, or a supplement tip. But I don't know, just nap when the baby naps. Like, enjoy that.
We went through that stage. I mean, our kids don't nap anymore, but I still managed to sneak in one every so often. But when the boys did nap, it was definitely there was three of us on the sofa or on the pull-out bed, and just for like a good solid hour, we'd get a nap in. And just fond memories of it, though. Like, you wake up, you're a bit more bonded. Don't know how, but you're a bit more bonded, and yeah, loving life.
Yeah, naps, man, love them.
And I think is it the Mediterranean lifestyle, or what countries?
Siestas, yeah,
Spain, yeah. So, and they live a long time. They've got a lot of centurions in their country. Yeah,
there's a bit of genetics there, I guess. I don't think nap time is really the thing, because they don't go to bed till like 1, 2 in the morning, because they had dinner at like 11 p.m.
Oh, okay, it's wine then, isn't it?
Maybe it is, yeah. Maybe it's the wine and sunshine.
Another kind of random tip that I've got is try reading. So interesting observation. When I've now read, I had a target at the start of the year to read 12 books. I've kind of gone off the wagon a little bit because I got myself stuck in a rut. I had 2 books that I got, and I'm halfway through both of them, but I'm not really enjoying them. So I don't feel the urge to pick them up and find out what's happening next. And I think I just need to bite the bullet and just say, I'm not really enjoying this. Let's put it down. That's okay. But I wear this Garmin Phoenix watch, and for everyone that kind of or says that they're not very reliable, there's been a lot of tests on how reliable they are compared to a chest strap. Anyway, heart rate I'm talking about, and my average beats per minute went way down when I kind of was in a constant reading a few chapters a day over a period of a week. My heart rate went down. So yeah, lowers your blood pressure, and is generally good for your health. So good chill out time.
I experienced that as well, if I'm honest. Like, I experienced where I had 2 books and I was reading them, and then I just didn't go out of the habit of doing it. There's part of me needs to force myself to do it to a certain extent. Like, I have to read a physical book. But I also got into like the habit of, once I start to get bored of a book, to think that I had to finish it.
Yeah. I'm
why?
in the same rut. I don't know.
Why on earth do you have to finish it? So I think I need to get back into that. So maybe I'll try and pick another one up when I get into the office, and I'll grab one and then try and start reading it again, because it's good. Like, it's just a good, like, listening to podcasts and reading books. To me, I've had a bit of a transformative aspect of the past 6 months, because I know that I was a better personal trainer, a better thinker, a better overall everything by reading and reading stuff. And podcasts have now extended that a little bit further. So I've got to get back into that reading stuff. So I'm going to grab some books and start sort of hammering back into them, because they're just good. Like, they are. They are.
That's solid advice. So let's. I'm not saying we're going to end this podcast yet, but try and think, and I'll answer mine first, because I've kind of a little bit prepped for it. But if you had one bit of advice for either a new dad or an existing dad that wants to maybe get fitter, wants to maybe get into a routine of doing a bit more mental health stuff, doing a bit more reading, what would your advice be? And do you want me to go first?
Yes.
Yeah. I would say try and commit to doing one thing. So don't change the earth. Don't try and start running, start eating healthily, start reading books all in the same week. Try and choose one thing, and try and do it first thing in the morning. So as I mentioned, I'm a big advocate for getting up early. Early mornings do get easier. It's generally a time where people are still sleeping, like your spouse or your children, so there's no interruptions, and you've got no excuses. If you set that alarm, try and get up, try and read a chapter if that's what you want to do, try and go for a walk. But yeah, sort out your early morning start and don't do everything at once.
Yeah, what would be my major tip? I think I have talked about this in previous podcasts, where if you're already kind of into fitness, which I kind of think that some people would be listening to this and have done something like that, or completed some sort of fitness task, or gone to the gym reasonably regularly when they were younger, or were in sport or whatever else. I think that a lot of people tend to corner themselves into the idea of what exercise is for them. Like, I'm a guy who does weights. I'm a guy who goes for a run. I'm a guy who just goes to the gym to exercise. I'm a guy who only runs to exercise. Exercise is testing my heart and lungs and my muscles. Whereas if you broaden that identity, or broaden that spectrum of how you approach being fit or healthy, I think that ultimately helps you be able to complete wherever you want and however you want. So, an example that I've given before is I defined myself as a bodybuilder. That meant I had to use a certain kind of equipment, a certain type of gym that had a certain type of atmosphere that did a certain thing. Although that I felt comfort and enjoyment and gained a lot of inspiration from doing that, I'm not the same person I was when I was 24. I don't have the same amount of time. I'm probably a bit wealthier. All these kind of things, like, there's more pressures on me. My time is certainly finite. So what I needed to do and have done is basically just change that idea. Like, I went from being a bodybuilder to someone who likes weight training, and then someone who likes going to the gym, and then someone who likes to exercise. And then that helps me understand that if it's just exercise, then sure, I can put some trainers on and I can go for a walk, or I can go for a run, or I can sit and meditate, or I can just be quiet, or that's basically it. That would be a big tip for me is taking away this idea that I have to go here to do this thing. No, you don't. Not if your overriding goal is to be healthier. You can be healthy doing it anywhere, at any time, whenever you want, with anything that's at your disposal. So, yeah, I guess that would be my tip thing
that's a pretty solid tip.
Keeping fit. It's even the switching off aspect of things. Like, I have to not have the children around me to switch off. No, you can switch off. You can just kind of sit and chill. You can just delegate a responsibility aspect. Just be like, hey, Laura, can you just watch Olivia for half an hour? And you can just sit there on your phone. You can write out something, or read a book, or listen to some music, or whatever else. That's some switching off.
Noise cancelling headphones helps.
Yeah, yes, it does. Very well. Great choice. So, yeah, I guess that kind of thing. That's what I would say.
Cool. No, I think on that note, I think it's a pretty solid episode. I don't think I've got anything else to add. I enjoyed it.
Indeed. I haven't even had dinner yet.
Wow, do you have a chef at dinner time, or is it help yourself?
Bit of everything.
Gordon's loving life in Wales.
Indeed. Okay. Well, okay, we can end it there, Neil. Nice little short one, 50 minutes or so we've done. But either way, yeah, that was episode number 27 of the Developing Dads podcast. Switching off, keeping fit as a dad, tips to unwind. Hopefully you've taken away a few interesting thoughts and whatnot. I, for one, I'm pretty happy, Neil, that, these conversations are ultimately leading to you thinking perhaps a little bit more deeply, because I know how the life that we have, or the life that you certainly have, but the life that we have can just be simply distracting, and we don't actually sit down and really think about until someone says something, or, a fucking train hits us.
Yeah,
ultimately,
or there's cracks that turn into...
Yeah, ultimately now you've kind of given yourself some deep work. You've considered, like, what am I doing here? Like, what's happening?
What is life?
Yeah, a little bit, but that's not a bad thing to do. It's a good thing to check in. So I'm glad that the podcast has sparked that. Delighted, in fact. But either way,
One
yeah.
thing, if we have any listeners that have reached the end, there's a sports day at the local school on Friday, and I believe they'll be asking some parents to partake. So next episode, I'll give you the results of hopefully I'll be number one in the running.
Hopefully. I don't like the word hopefully, Neil.
I'll
Hopefully
get my carbon fiber vapor flies on.
As Joe Lycett says, hopefully doth not butter one's parsnip. So
Wow.
it should be one more of a, yes, I am a winning kind of greenhorn.
Fingers crossed to get that sticker.
Fingers crossed, indeed, Neil. And I'll let you know how I get on and how I've survived Wales overall.
Good luck finding some food.
Well, there's a pizza downstairs, I'm sure, somewhere.
Cool.
Anyway, thank you to anyone who's been listening. As always, you can find us on all the Spotify's and the Apple stuff everywhere. You probably listened to it on something here, so I don't know why I'm telling you that. We also have it on YouTube. Neil one day will get into the flow of actually releasing 2 to 3 reels per week on the podcast. He's told me he's edited a bunch, but I think that's a lie. Until I see them on the Instagram page, it's an absolute outrage. But either way, he probably will post them, and they'll be valuable little snippets from some of our conversations. Like, comment, subscribe. I'd love to know how you get on with the Toggle app. If there's anything that you enjoyed about it, did it work? Did it not work? We'd love to hear some thoughts. But either way, to the 2.5 listeners that have got themselves to the end of this podcast, thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a lovely rest of your week, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Cheers.